Lena stood at the threshold of the grand front door, her heart pounding. Tom's voice rang through the house, filled with bitterness and finality. "I'm done. You're out. Pack your things and leave. I've made my decision." The door slammed shut behind her before she could respond. "Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you've ever felt like you had to fight for your worth, hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss how this story ends." Lena stared at the door for a moment, unsure if the words she'd just heard had truly sunk in. She'd been married to Tom for over 15 years, but today, it felt like a lifetime had come crashing down around her. The house was still quiet, too quiet. The grand chandelier in the hallway caught the last light of the afternoon sun, casting long shadows against the walls, but it did nothing to warm the chill that had settled in her bones. She felt numb, but there was a flicker of disbelief that kept her from fully accepting what had just happened. Tom had always been demanding, controlling even, but never cruel. Not like this. Not until now. Lena walked across the marble floors to the stairs. She had to get to her room, to her things. But just as she reached the landing, she heard voices, loud, excited voices. It was Tom and Jessica, his new girlfriend, the one who had been there for less than 6 months, but now apparently had taken her place. "I don't care about her. You deserve better. I'll take care of you and the baby, Jessica." Tom's voice was smooth, seductive, but Lena could hear the edge to it, the desperation. Lena stopped. Her heart raced. The baby? She turned and went into her room without a word. She'd learned long ago that silence was often the best defense. She grabbed a few of her things, clothes, jewelry, a few important documents, but she couldn't bring herself to leave the house just yet. The world outside had always seemed like a distant, far-off thing. Tom's world had consumed everything. The house, the parties, the appearances. She had lived in his shadow for so long. And now, as she packed her bags, she realized just how much of herself she had left behind in the process. The door to her room creaked open, and Lena froze. It was Tom. "I told you you're leaving," he said, his face cold and distant. "You don't get to stay here anymore. The estate is mine, and you've got no claim to it." His words felt like a slap. Her heart pounded, and the room seemed to close in on her. But then, something stirred deep inside her. She had spent years believing that her place in this house, in Tom's life, was secondary, that she didn't matter as much as his success. But suddenly, the truth hit her with all the force of a freight train. The estate was hers, not his. "Tom," she said, her voice shaking but resolute, "you have no idea what you've done." As Lena walked out of the house for what felt like the last time, the weight of the future pressed down on her. She had no money, no plans, and no idea where to go next. But one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let him get away with this. She would fight for what was hers. "Where do you think you're going?" Tom's voice echoed from the doorway. He'd been standing there, watching, waiting for her to pack her things. The arrogance in his tone made Lena's skin crawl. But she didn't flinch. "I'm leaving," she said, not looking up. "But not the way you think. Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever had someone take something from you, then try to make it seem like it was always theirs? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you've ever stood up for yourself when no one else would, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to get even more intense." Lena paused, her hands trembling as she packed the last of her things. She had never felt more defeated and, strangely, more determined at the same time. The harsh truth of Tom's words still echoed in her mind, but she was beginning to understand the game she was playing now wasn't just about a house or a marriage. It was about power. His, and now hers. "Are you really going to walk out on everything we built?" Tom asked, his voice quieter now, but there was still that edge of entitlement. He had always believed that everything he had was his business, his success, his life. And now, apparently, his house. "I'm not leaving everything, Tom," Lena said, finally turning to face him. "I'm leaving you." His eyes widened for just a second, before he quickly masked it with a laugh. You think I care? You'll be begging me to take you back in a month. But Lena just shook her head. You don't get it. I never needed you to begin with. It was always you who needed me. And for the first time in years, Lena felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Her power. As Lena stepped out of the house, the weight of her decision began to sink in. The estate wasn't hers just because of paperwork. It was hers because she had been there from the beginning. The quiet support, the sacrifices. It had been a partnership, but Tom had forgotten that. He thought he could throw her away without consequence. Now she was going to show him just how wrong he was. She drove through the streets of their upscale neighborhood, the manicured lawns and pristine houses reflecting a life that had once been hers. But as she passed the familiar houses, a sense of calm settled over her. She wasn't just a victim. Not anymore. Lena knew she had a choice. She could walk away and disappear, or she could take what was rightfully hers. Every single thing Tom had built on the foundation she'd helped create. She wouldn't be just another woman left behind. She was Lena, and she was more than capable of standing up for herself. But first, she needed to make sure she had all the facts. The first stop was her lawyer's office. Lena sat across from Richard, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for getting results. He looked at her across the desk, his expression unreadable as she explained what had happened. I never thought he'd do this, she said, her voice tight. He's always been arrogant, but I never imagined he'd actually kick me out of the house and think I'd just disappear. Richard leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. Lena, he may think this is just about the house, but it's not. This is about something bigger. You've been married for over 15 years, and during that time, you contributed just as much to that estate as he did. Lena nodded slowly. She'd always trusted Tom to take the lead when it came to financial matters. She'd never asked for much, always content to support him and his career. But now, with the betrayal fresh in her mind, the truth felt like a slap. I never thought about it that way, Lena whispered. But you're right. I've been here from the beginning, and I have every right to fight for what's mine. Richard smiled slightly. Exactly. You don't have to just walk away. You've got options, Lena. This isn't just about the house. It's about ensuring that you're not left with nothing. And trust me, Tom won't see you coming. Lena felt a sense of relief wash over her, but it was quickly replaced by something deeper, resolve. She wasn't just going to take back what was hers. She was going to show Tom exactly what he had lost. That night, Lena returned to the estate. She had been calm all day, focusing on the steps she needed to take. But now, standing at the front door again, the anger bubbled up inside her. Tom had already moved Jessica in. Lena could see them through the windows, laughing, planning their future, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit them. She didn't knock. She didn't wait for an invitation. She let herself in. Tom turned around at the sound of the door opening, a smug smile spreading across his face. What are you doing here, Lena? Didn't I make myself clear? Lena didn't say a word. Instead, she placed a folder on the table in front of him. It was full of legal documents, papers from Richard's office. You're going to want to take a look at these, Tom. He opened the folder, and his face immediately went pale. The documents outlined the estate's ownership, the terms of their marriage, and the undeniable truth. The property wasn't in his name. It was in hers. I've been holding on to this for years, Lena said softly, her voice steady now. You may think you can control everything, but you can't control me. This estate is mine, Tom, and you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. Tom's face twisted with disbelief, then anger. You can't be serious. I am, Lena replied, her heart steady. And you can't undo what you've done. This is over. You're out. Tom stood there, stunned, his mind racing. But Lena didn't give him the chance to speak. She turned and walked out, her steps slow but sure. As she reached the door, she paused, taking one last look at the life she had built with him, the life he thought he could just toss away. She didn't feel sadness. She didn't feel defeat. She felt power, raw and undeniable. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in years Lena felt free. But just as Lena thought she had regained control, a new voice rang out from behind her. "You can't do this, Lena. You'll regret it." It was Jessica, the pregnant mistress, standing at the threshold. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning." Lena's heart skipped a beat. The battle for her future wasn't over. In fact, it was only just starting. "You're making a mistake." Tom's voice was quieter now, but there was no mistaking the venom behind his words. "You think this estate is going to solve everything? You're wrong." Lena didn't turn around. She wasn't listening anymore. She had already won. But Tom wasn't ready to admit it yet. "Before we dive deeper into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever had someone try to control your life? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next." Lena stood at the foot of the stairs, her hand resting on the railing. She hadn't expected Tom to take it so badly, but part of her knew he would. He was never one to accept being challenged. It had always been his way or nothing, and for years she had quietly gone along with it. But this time she wasn't going to back down. The documents in her hands were her shield. The house, the estate, it wasn't his. It was hers. And now she was going to make sure Tom understood that. But even as the initial rush of victory faded, doubt crept in. She thought she was ready for the fight, but the weight of the situation was heavier than she'd imagined. Tom didn't play fair. And now, with Jessica in the picture, things were going to get even messier. The next morning, Lena sat at her kitchen table, staring at the papers scattered in front of her. Her lawyer had made it clear. She had legal ownership of the estate. But that didn't mean it would be easy to get it back. Tom would fight her every step of the way. She had expected this. But part of her, some small part, still couldn't shake the feeling that maybe it had all been a mistake. Was she being too harsh? Was there a way to walk away from the fight, to take the house and walk out without tearing everything apart? Could she go back to the life she'd known before? The answer, of course, was no. She had tried to ignore the warning signs for too long. And now, as much as it hurt, it was time to face the truth. Tom wasn't just a part of her life anymore. He was a person she had to fight against. And she had to win. Just as Lena was lost in thought, her phone rang. She picked it up, seeing Richard's name on the screen. "Lena, we need to talk," Richard said, his voice tight. "There's been a development." Lena's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" "I've received some troubling news. Tom's lawyer has filed a motion for the estate. They're trying to claim ownership by saying you didn't contribute to the property. Basically, they're saying you're entitled to nothing." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "What? That's insane." "I know, but they're going to use every tactic to try to pressure you. You need to be prepared for the fight of your life." Lena took a deep breath. She wasn't about to back down. "Not now. I'm not giving up. I'll fight him." "Good," Richard said. "We'll meet tomorrow. I'll walk you through your options. But just know this isn't going to be quick. You need to stay strong." Lena hung up the phone and sat back, her mind spinning. Tom wasn't just going to let go of the house. He was going to fight dirty. The next day, Lena drove back to the estate. She hadn't planned to go there so soon, but she couldn't avoid it any longer. This was the place where her life had fallen apart, and now it was where she had to rebuild everything. As she stepped onto the front porch, she saw Jessica standing by the door. The young woman's expression was one of defiance, but there was a fear in her eyes too. Lena took a deep breath. "What are you doing here?" Jessica shrugged. "I live here now. This is my home. Or at least, it will be when Tom finishes making you disappear." Lena felt a flicker of anger. She wanted to lash out, but she knew better. "You don't know anything about me, Jessica. I know enough. You're nothing but a ghost in this house. Tom doesn't need you anymore. He's moving on, and so should you." Lena stepped forward, standing taller than she had in years. "I'm not going anywhere. This estate is mine. And if Tom wants to fight for it, he'll have to go through me." Jessica scoffed. "You really think you're going to win this?" Lena's voice was steady, but it carried the weight of everything she had been holding back. "I don't need to win. I already have. This house, this estate, everything we've built together, it's mine. I'm done letting him control me. Jessica's eyes flickered with doubt, but she quickly masked it. Tom's not going to just give up. You'll lose, just like you always do. Lena didn't flinch. I'm done being afraid. Later that evening, Lena received a letter. It was from Tom's lawyer. The contents of the letter were clear. Tom was demanding that she vacate the estate within 30 days. If she didn't comply, he would take legal action to have her removed. The pressure was mounting. But as Lena read the letter, something inside her snapped. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about reclaiming her life. She wasn't going to let Tom walk all over her again. She immediately called Richard. "We need to take action now," she said, her voice firm. "Tell them I'm not leaving." That night, Lena stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. For so long, she had been the one who kept everything together, holding the pieces of her life and marriage in place. But now the cracks were showing. She had never felt more alive and more terrified at the same time. Tomorrow would be a battle. But for the first time, Lena knew she was ready to fight. And this time there was no going back. Lena didn't knock. She just stepped into the office. And there he was, Tom, standing at the desk with his lawyer, his face contorted in frustration. His eyes locked onto her as if he'd seen a ghost. "I told you you're not welcome here." Tom spat, his voice tight. Lena stood tall, her hands clenched by her sides. "I'm here to take what's mine. This estate isn't yours anymore, Tom. It never was. Before we dive into the chaos of this fight, I need to know something. Have you ever had to stand up for something that mattered to you? What did you do? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you're ready to see how this battle ends, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next." Lena had known this would happen. She had expected it. But standing in front of Tom, who had spent years telling her that she was nothing more than a supporting character in his life, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Tom was clearly unprepared for this. He looked like he was still processing what had happened the day before. His hands were shaking, his jaw tight. But there was nothing he could do to undo what Lena had already set in motion. "I'm not leaving," Lena said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her. "And you need to accept that." Tom's lawyer, a slick man named Sean, smirked. "You're wasting your time, Mrs. Woodward. The property's still in his name. You're not legally entitled to it." Lena turned her gaze to Sean, the calm exterior belying the fire inside her. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "And you're going to regret underestimating me." The conversation dragged on for a while. Tom's lawyer arguing that Lena had no case, Tom's infuriating smugness reminding her why she was here in the first place. But Lena didn't argue. She didn't need to. She'd learned long ago that silence could speak louder than words. She knew the truth now. The estate was hers. It wasn't just about legal documents. It was about what she had built alongside Tom, the sacrifices she had made, the years of standing by him while he built his empire. As the meeting ended, Lena stood up to leave. But before she could turn, Tom stepped in front of her. "You can't win this, Lena. You don't belong here. You never did." Her chest tightened, but she held his gaze. "I've been here longer than you've been willing to admit, Tom. I'm not going anywhere." She left the office, her heart pounding. But this time, she didn't feel scared. She felt determined. But just as she was about to walk out the door, Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced down at it, her breath catching when she saw the name. Richard. Her lawyer's voice was strained when she picked up. "Lena, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's something you need to know. We've hit a bit of a snag." Lena's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "There's a lien on the property. It wasn't registered on the original documents. Someone else has a claim to the estate." Lena's pulse raced. "Who?" Richard didn't answer right away. "I'm not sure, but it's a serious issue. You need to come in so we can look into it." Lena's world tilted. A lien? This was something she hadn't even considered. She hadn't been expecting a secret third party, someone else with a claim to what was supposed to be hers. Who could possibly have a claim? Lena repeated, her voice shaking. Right now, we don't know, but we'll figure it out, Richard said. I'll set up a meeting for this afternoon. Get here as soon as you can. Lena's hands trembled as she ended the call. This wasn't just about fighting Tom anymore. There was someone else pulling the strings. By the time Lena arrived at Richard's office, her mind was racing. This wasn't just a fight for a house anymore. It was a fight for everything. Her entire life had been built around this estate. And now it seemed like everything she knew was slipping through her fingers. Lena, Richard greeted her, his voice low. I found some information. We have a name. It's an investment firm, Davenport Holdings. They've been quietly buying up properties in the area, and it seems they have a financial interest in your estate. But there's no record of them filing anything against it until now. Lena felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. So, they're coming after me? We're not sure yet, but this is a huge complication. Davenport Holdings has money and connections. If they're serious about taking control of the estate, it's going to get a lot harder to fight. Lena stared at the documents in front of her. This wasn't just about Tom anymore. It was about business, power, and control. Someone else had been waiting in the shadows to strike, and now they were making their move. Lena had to fight. There was no other choice. But she wasn't just fighting Tom anymore. She was fighting a system that had always been stacked against her. She had spent too many years playing the role of the quiet, supportive wife. Now she had to become something else, something stronger. She stood up from the table, determination setting into her bones. We're not backing down, she said to Richard. I don't care who this investment firm is. This estate is mine, and I'll fight for it. Richard met her eyes, his expression softened with respect. I knew you'd say that. We'll get the information we need, Lena, and we'll make sure they don't win. But as Lena walked out of the office, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Tom. This isn't over, Lena. I'm coming for you. You'll regret this. Her grip tightened around the phone. Tom had no idea what he was up against. This fight was only just beginning, and Lena was ready to see it through to the end. Lena stood in front of the courthouse, the weight of everything pressing on her shoulders. She felt the eyes of the world on her as the doors swung open. But inside, her heart raced with fear. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about the life she had built, and whether she could keep it. She was about to find out. Before we dive into this next part, I need to know something. Have you ever faced a moment where you felt like everything was about to fall apart? What did you do? Drop a comment below, I read everyone. And if you're ready to see how this battle unfolds, hit that subscribe button. The story is far from over. Lena took a deep breath and walked inside. The courtroom was buzzing with energy, but her eyes were fixed on one thing. Tom, sitting on the opposite side with his lawyer, Sean. Jessica was sitting beside him, her eyes cold and calculating. Tom didn't even glance up when Lena entered. He knew she was there. Lena's grip on her purse tightened as she walked toward the plaintiff's table. The reality of what she was facing hit her again. This wasn't a simple divorce anymore. It was a battle over everything. The estate, the money, the life they'd once shared. As the judge entered and everyone rose, Lena's mind was racing. Davenport Holdings had become a serious player in this case. They had their own set of lawyers, their own team of experts, and Lena knew that with their financial clout they could outlast her. She had no idea how far they would go to get what they wanted. But she wasn't going to let them win. Not after everything she'd been through. The trial went on for hours, but it was the same thing over and over. Tom's lawyer kept twisting the truth, and Lena's lawyer was struggling to keep up. Every time they mentioned the estate, Tom shot a smug look at her, like he knew he had already won. Finally, after a long session of back and forth, Tom stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to make something clear. Lena has had no part in this estate for years. It's my success, my hard work, and all of it belongs to me. Lena could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to stand up and scream, but she held herself back. She had to stay calm. This was the moment where everything would change. When it was her turn to speak, Lena stood. She could hear her voice shaking, but she wasn't about to let Tom dictate her life anymore. I've been here every step of the way. While Tom was building his empire, I was right there beside him, supporting him, holding the pieces together when everything started to crumble. I didn't just stand by. I was part of the foundation of this estate, and I have every right to fight for what is mine. There was a moment of silence in the courtroom. Lena's words hung in the air, and even Tom seemed taken aback. But he quickly recovered, leaning toward his lawyer to whisper something. The tension in the room grew thicker. As the trial continued, things only got worse. Lena's lawyer started showing signs of frustration. We're being blocked on every front. They've got connections in places we never expected. This isn't just a legal battle. It's a corporate fight, and they've got the money to make this go on for years. Lena could feel the walls closing in. The estate she had fought for, this house, this life, was slipping through her fingers. Every turn felt like a dead end. Tom had the courts on his side, and now Davenport Holdings seemed to have their claws in everything. But the final blow came when her lawyer slid a document across the table. It was a motion from Davenport Holdings, demanding immediate action to seize the estate based on unresolved ownership issues. They were claiming that the estate wasn't fully registered under Lena's name, and without her involvement in the initial paperwork, she couldn't legally prove her ownership. Lena felt the blood drain from her face. "They're lying," she whispered, her voice cracking. "This is all lies." "I'm afraid this is serious," Richard said quietly. "We need more than just a legal case. We need something they can't dispute." Later that night, Lena sat in her apartment, staring at the pile of papers in front of her. Her mind was racing. Tom's lawyer, Sean, was relentless. Davenport Holdings was like a shadow, growing stronger every day. She had no idea how she could fight this. Her phone buzzed, and she didn't even need to look at the screen to know who it was. Tom. He had been texting her nonstop, and tonight's message was no different. "You've made your choice, Lena. You're just going to lose. Give up now, and maybe we can work something out." Her hands shook as she read the words. He wasn't even pretending to care about what was happening. To him, this was just a game, and if she lost, he'd walk away unscathed, with everything he wanted. Lena's thoughts started to spiral. Maybe she wasn't enough to win this. Maybe Tom's power and money were too much. Maybe she'd lost before she even started. But then, she remembered something. Something that had kept her going through every tough moment. It wasn't the estate that mattered most. It wasn't the house or the money. It was the years she had spent sacrificing everything for someone who had never appreciated her. And now, she had a chance to show him what she was truly made of. She stood up from the table, throwing the papers aside. "I won't let him win," she whispered to herself. "I can't." Lena grabbed her phone and dialed Richard's number. "We need to meet. Tomorrow. I'll do whatever it takes." She knew it wasn't just the estate that was on the line now. It was her future, and she was ready to take it back. The next morning, Lena stood in front of Richard's office, her heart pounding. This was it. If she didn't find the right way to fight back now, everything would be lost. And as she stepped inside, she realized something. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about proving to herself that she was worth fighting for. Lena slammed her fist down on the table, her breath coming in short, sharp bursts. "I'm done waiting. If they want to take this estate from me, they'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands." Richard leaned back, staring at her in quiet disbelief. "You're serious? You'll go that far?" "Absolutely," Lena said, her voice steely. "I didn't get this far to back down now. Before we get into the fight of a lifetime, I need to know something. Have you ever reached a point where you had to choose between fighting for something you loved and letting go? What did you choose? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you're ready to see how Lena's battle plays out, hit that subscribe button. This is the turning point. The room was cold, the silence stretching out between them. Lena felt the weight of everything hanging on the next few words. She had come so far, but now the reality of what she was up against was sinking in. Davenport Holdings wasn't just a company, it was a force. Tom's connections had ensured that she was fighting more than just him. She was fighting an entire system stacked against her. But then Richard did something unexpected. He leaned forward, his fingers tapping the edge of the desk. "Lena, we've been focusing on the wrong thing. We've been so caught up in fighting Tom and Davenport that we've forgotten about the real weapon you have." Lena's brow furrowed. "What weapon? I don't have anything left." Richard shook his head. "You've got leverage. Something they don't expect." The realization hit her hard, but it also sparked something inside. Leverage. She hadn't thought of it like that, but she realized that her own past, her connections, her influence, could be exactly what she needed to turn the tide. It wasn't going to be easy, but Lena's mind was now racing with possibilities. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she had a chance to make a real impact. She had always played it safe, always tried to stay in the background, but now was the time to step forward and use everything at her disposal. Richard was right. She wasn't just a woman on the edge of losing everything. She was someone who had built this life from the ground up. She had a right to fight for it. Lena sat back, her eyes narrowing. "If they want to take this from me, they'll have to deal with every connection I've ever made. Every person who's ever trusted me." Richard nodded. "Exactly. If we can get a few key allies on our side, people who understand the stakes, we could change everything. They won't be able to ignore you then." The next morning, Lena made a call she had never imagined making. She dialed Marcus Dawson, an old business partner from the early days of Tom's empire. Marcus had been with her and Tom when they were building everything from scratch. He had seen the ups and downs, the hard work that went into the estate. He had seen Lena's contribution. The phone rang, and she held her breath. She needed him on her side. Desperately. "Marcus, it's Lena," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. There was a long pause before he responded. "Lena, I didn't expect to hear from you. I need your help," she said, her heart pounding. "I know we haven't talked in years, but I'm fighting for something important, and I need someone who understands how much this estate means to me." "I know what it means," Marcus replied, his voice softening, "and I know how much you sacrificed for it. I'm not asking for a favor, Marcus. I'm asking you to be an ally. If you help me now, I can take back what's mine." Marcus hesitated for a moment before finally saying, "All right, I'll help, but you need to know this won't be easy. You're going up against a powerful network. But I'll do what I can." Lena felt a rush of relief. One ally was a start, but she knew that wasn't enough. She needed to rally more people. It was time to turn the tables. Lena stood in front of the mirror later that evening, her hands shaking as she adjusted her hair. She didn't recognize the woman staring back at her anymore. She had gone from a quiet wife, content to let her husband make all the decisions, to a woman who was ready to burn every bridge if it meant securing her future. Her life had changed in ways she hadn't anticipated. Every decision now felt like a choice between survival and surrender. And no matter how hard it got, no matter how much she had to sacrifice, Lena knew there was no turning back. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Richard. "We've got a hearing tomorrow," he said. "You're going to have to make a statement. You need to be ready." Lena closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Tomorrow was the day. Everything she had fought for, everything she had been through, it was all going to come down to this. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. The hearing the next day was unlike anything Lena had ever experienced. The courtroom was packed with spectators, reporters, and the buzz of the press. She could feel their eyes on her as she entered, but this time, she didn't flinch. She wasn't the woman who had been afraid to speak up anymore. She wasn't afraid of losing. Tom was there, sitting with his smug expression, Jessica by his side. As always, they looked at her like she was already defeated. But Lena knew better now. She knew that what they had built wasn't just a house. It was a legacy. And that legacy wasn't just his. It was hers too. The judge called the court to order, and the tension in the room escalated. Lena stood when it was her turn to speak. The eyes of everyone in the room were on her, waiting. She cleared her throat, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. But as she spoke, She felt stronger than she ever had before. I built this life. I built this estate. And I will not stand by and let it be taken from me. What I'm fighting for is more than a piece of land. It's my right to claim what is rightfully mine. And I will not let anyone take that away. As she sat down, Lena felt the eyes of the room on her. She could see the doubt flicker in Tom's eyes, the unease creeping into his posture. For the first time, she wasn't the one who was afraid. The ball was in their court now, and Lena was ready for whatever came next. Lena stared at the papers in front of her, papers that had the power to destroy everything. She had worked so hard to protect this life, and now it was slipping through her fingers. Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone to dial Richard. But before she could, the doorbell rang. Before we dive in, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you're curious to see how Lena rises from this, hit that subscribe button. The worst may be behind her, but the hardest battle is yet to come. Lena opened the door to find Tom standing on her doorstep, his face pale, his eyes cold. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight. Lena stepped back, suddenly unsure of what was coming next. She had hoped, no, prayed, that this moment would never happen. But here he was, standing in front of her, like a ghost from her past. "I'm not interested in what you have to say, Tom," Lena said, her voice sharp. She was done listening to his lies, done with the games. But Tom didn't move. "You don't understand. There's something you need to know. It's about the estate." Lena's stomach twisted. "What could you possibly say about the estate that I don't already know?" "Lena, please," he said, looking almost desperate. "You need to hear me out. The truth is, I never wanted any of this to go down this way. But there's something bigger than both of us at play here. You're not just fighting me. You're fighting the entire system. And I'm sorry, but you can't win." Lena's heart skipped a beat. What was he saying? "What do you mean, Tom?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, as if the words were physically painful to say. "I made a deal with Davenport Holdings. The estate isn't just a piece of property anymore. It's part of a much larger financial network. If you take this fight further, it'll ruin both of us. It's over." Lena stood frozen, her mind reeling. She had never expected this, had never thought that Tom could be so cold, so ruthless. But the sting of betrayal went deeper. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about everything she had given up for him. All those years of supporting his dreams, standing by him when no one else would. And this was how it ended? Tom was still talking, but Lena couldn't hear him anymore. She couldn't focus on the words coming out of his mouth. The truth was too painful. He had sold her out, sold them both out, to save his own skin. The crushing weight of it all hit her like a wave. She had lost. Lena barely remembered how she ended up back at her apartment later that day. She had been numb, moving through the motions. Tom's betrayal had shattered something inside her. She had trusted him, believed that the man she married wouldn't be capable of this kind of cruelty. But she was wrong. Now all she could think about was the estate. Her mind kept racing, the pieces falling into place. Davenport Holdings was in it for the long haul. They had the power, the money, the connections to make this drag on for years. And Tom had handed it to them on a silver platter. Lena sat down on the couch, her hands in her lap, her head heavy with the weight of everything. She had been so sure that she was doing the right thing, that standing up for herself was enough. But now, it felt like everything had been taken from her before she could even really fight for it. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the silence. It was Richard. "I've been looking into Davenport Holdings," he said, his voice urgent. "Lena, they're not just after the estate. They're trying to erase everything. The estate's financials are tangled up with offshore accounts. There's money in places we can't even trace. You're not just fighting for your home. You're fighting for your entire future." Lena closed her eyes, fighting the urge to collapse. What did he want her to do? How could she fight this when everything she had built was crumbling around her? "I don't know if I can keep doing this, Richard," she whispered. "What's the point? It feels like I'm already defeated." There was a long pause on the other end. You're not defeated, Lena. Not yet. But you need to make a choice. You can either walk away or keep fighting. But if you walk away now, you'll never get another chance. Lena stared at the phone, her mind racing. She had spent so much time being afraid. Afraid of losing. Afraid of what it would cost. But now, what was the alternative? Letting Tom and Davenport take everything? Letting them win? Lena made her decision. I'm not backing down. That night, Lena sat in front of her computer, looking at the financial documents Richard had sent her. She couldn't focus. The numbers blurred together. But then, something caught her eye. A name. A name she didn't recognize. She typed it into the search bar. What she found made her blood run cold. This name, one of the executives from Davenport Holdings, had ties to her family's past. Lena's mother had mentioned him once in passing. A man from her mother's old world. A world Lena had never fully understood. It wasn't just business anymore. It was personal. Lena's hand shook as she stared at the screen. This wasn't just a fight over an estate. It was a fight against everything she had tried to leave behind. And now that past had come back to haunt her. Lena closed her laptop and stood up, her legs unsteady. She didn't know if she was ready to face the full extent of what she had uncovered. But one thing was certain. She couldn't back down now. Whatever came next, she was in it until the end. And she was determined to make them regret ever underestimating her. The courtroom was silent. Lena stood, facing the judge, Tom and Jessica on the opposite side. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about everything she'd worked for, everything she'd lost. Her lawyer looked at her with a quiet nod. It's time, Lena. Before we dive in, have you ever been pushed to the edge only to find the strength to fight back? What made you keep going? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you want to see how this story ends, hit that subscribe button. Lena's fight isn't over just yet. Lena walked toward the front of the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her shoulders straight, her eyes focused on the judge. Today, she wasn't just a wife who'd been left behind. She wasn't just a woman fighting for what was rightfully hers. She was someone who had been tested and was ready to pass. Your Honor, Lena began, her voice steady. I've spent my entire life building this estate. Every sacrifice, every choice, every challenge. It's been mine, and mine alone. I didn't ask for this fight, but I'm here now, and I'm not backing down. She looked directly at Tom, who sat with his arms crossed, a smug expression still lingering on his face. But his eyes flickered with doubt. He knew she wasn't the same woman she used to be. You think you can just take everything from me. But this estate is more than just property. It's a part of my legacy. It's part of my family's history. And you know what, Tom? It's mine. Not yours. Not Davenport's. Mine. The words rang out through the courtroom, carrying with them the weight of everything Lena had been through. The battle, the heartbreak, the betrayals. All of it led to this moment. Tom's face tightened, but he didn't say a word. Jessica, sitting beside him, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting nervously. She hadn't expected Lena to come back so strong. But the damage had been done. And now Lena had something they didn't. A seat at the table. Richard had done his homework. The documents they had uncovered over the last few days were enough to blow the whole case wide open. There were ties to illegal transactions, hidden accounts, things Tom and Davenport Holdings never thought would be discovered. Lena, Richard spoke up, his voice firm. The estate's ownership wasn't the only thing they tried to control. The very heart of this case is corruption. It's not just about the money, it's about fairness, justice. And Lena deserves that justice. Lena felt the courtroom shift as the tension mounted. She could see Tom's knuckles turning white, his grip on his seat tightening. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was personal. The next moments felt like they were happening in slow motion. The judge cleared his throat, looking down at the stack of documents in front of him. I've reviewed the evidence presented. The facts are clear. This estate is legally and rightfully yours, Lena. Lena couldn't breathe. For a moment, everything around her blurred. Her heart was pounding, her vision fuzzy. It was happening. She had won. Tom's face drained of color as the judge continued. Mr. Brooks, you've been involved in actions that have undermined not only this court but also the very integrity of the law. You will be held accountable. Lena took a deep breath. She had done it. She had fought for everything and won. She had reclaimed her future. The judge's gavel echoed through the room, signaling the end of the trial. The noise, the chaos, the tension. It all faded away as Lena walked out of the courtroom. The weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders. Richard walked beside her, offering a quiet smile. You did it. Lena nodded, her heart still racing. She had won, but this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. As they reached the exit, Lena paused and turned back for a moment. Tom was still sitting there, his head in his hands, Jessica whispering something to him. But it was clear. They had lost. And Lena had won. That night, as Lena stood on the balcony of her apartment, looking out over the city, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The fight wasn't over. There were still legal battles ahead, and things would never be the same. But Lena had won the most important thing of all. Her dignity, her future, and her right to choose her own path. And then, as she stood there, she realized something even deeper. She had fought for herself, not for anyone else. Not for Tom, not for the estate, but for the person she had become. Her phone buzzed, and Lena glanced at the screen. It was a text from Marcus, the man who had helped her when she thought all was lost. You were right all along. You didn't need anyone's permission. You're unstoppable. A small smile tugged at her lips. She had done it, on her own terms. Lena's heart felt lighter than it had in years. She had faced her fears, overcome her pain, and taken back what was hers. And in the end, she realized the true power was never in the estate or the money. It was in the strength she had discovered within herself. Lena stepped back from the balcony, her fingers brushing against the railing. The city lights glowed beneath her, but it was the quiet within her that she valued most. She had made it through the hardest battle of her life. The story didn't end with a mansion or a fortune. It ended with something far more precious. Her peace. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.